What if Tensura, the 8th Primordial? Author, 1010-100. When Haru of the Minamoto dies standing after a heroic effort during the Genpei War, he is reincarnated in the world of that time. I got reincarnated as a slime. As a demon? In the Underworld? As a bottom feeder? Watch Haru climb the ranks of the demon ladder, and maybe someday, stand toe-to-toe with the monsters of the Underworld and the Cardinal World. Chapter 74, Harmless Fun. Loki chuckled lightly. Come on, Yuki. Why the cold welcome? He said, spreading his arms slightly. We're friends, aren't we? Shouldn't you greet me with a hug or something? In the next instant, Yuki moved. There was no warning, nor any buildup of intent. His body blurred forward, and his legs snapped upward in a precise, ruthless kick aimed straight at Loki's torso. But Loki only smiled. He lifted his knee casually and met the kick head-on. Boom! A sharp shockwave exploded outward, rattling the office. Papers flew into the air, windows trembled, and the heavy desk groaned under the pressure. The two legs remained locked together for a brief moment, neither budging. Loki tilted his head. How cold, he said lightly. Did I perhaps do something to anger you? Yuki clicked his tongue and withdrew his leg, landing smoothly. Listen, Yuki said sharply. I don't have time for your games. I demand an answer. Tell me who you are. Loki's smile widened. That's quite ironic, he replied. A man leading a bunch of clowns telling me he doesn't have time for games. Yuki's pupils contracted. Clowns? His mind raced. How does he know that? The moderate Harlequin alliance isn't public knowledge. There shouldn't be anyone outside the inner circle. Is there a traitor? No, that made no sense. Impossible, even. Loki watched Yuki's expression with amusement. You look confused, Yuki. Yuki moved again. This time, instead of a kick, he twisted his body and threw a sharp punch aimed straight at Loki's face. It was fast enough to break bone if it landed. Loki didn't even lean back. He flicked his wrist. Yuki's fist was knocked aside as if swatted by an afterthought. Yuki's eyes widened slightly, but he didn't hesitate. He shifted his stance, preparing to chain another attack. And then, a heavy thud echoed. An invisible force slammed down on him. Yuki's knees buckled instantly. His body was driven into the floor, cracks spreading beneath him like spiderwebs. What is this? Yuki gasped. He couldn't move. Not a finger. Not even his neck. Loki looked down at him calmly. Gravity, he said. I just increased the pressure acting on your body enough to pin you down. He stepped closer, hands in his pockets. Look, Yuki. All jokes aside. Before Loki could finish, the crushing pressure vanished. Yuki exploded upward. His fist rocketed toward Loki's face, filled with desperation and resolve. Loki's eyes widened slightly in surprise. Then his palm came down. I said, listen to me. Crash. Loki struck Yuki once. Just once. Yuki was sent flying across the office like a ragdoll, smashing through the air and crashing into the far wall. Stone shattered, cracks spreading outward as his body slumped down. Gah! Yuki coughed violently, blood splattering onto the floor. His vision swam as he struggled to sit upright. This guy, his hands trembled. He's too strong. He can't win. What is this overwhelming strength? Loki stood where he was, clicking his tongue. That anti-skill ability of yours, he said with genuine interest. Honestly, what an insane ability. He chuckled. If I were here for a fight, I'd definitely leave with it as a souvenir. Yuki's blood ran cold. Loki's gaze sharpened. But I didn't come here to fight. I came to talk. So we'll have to put that on hold. Yuki wiped the blood from his mouth and let out a weak chuckle. It seems you know everything about me. He pushed himself up, forcing his body to cooperate, and straightened his clothes as best as he could. You're strong, Yuki admitted calmly. He exhaled slowly. So fine. I'll listen to whatever you have to say. Loki smiled. He walked over to Yuki's desk, pulled out the chair opposite him, and sat down like he owned the place. Giving up that easily? Loki said. I thought you'd put up more of a fight. Yuki moved back to his own chair, sat down across from him, and clasped his hands together. I could fight, Yuki replied evenly. But what would be the point? Loki shrugged. Fair enough. He leaned back in his chair, crossing one leg over the other. So, Loki continued casually, I have two matters I want to discuss with you. Yuki's eyes narrowed slightly, but he nodded. Go on, he said. I'm listening. The room fell silent. Loki leaned back in his chair, a lazy smile spreading across his face. Yuki, don't you ever think this world is incredibly boring? Loki said. Yuki frowned slightly, clearly confused. I don't know, Yuki replied. I wouldn't say that. Loki shrugged. Well, I do. I think this world needs a bit of fun. A bit of something interesting. Yuki let out a long sigh. Normally, when a demon talks about fun, it involves the deaths of men. Loki chuckled softly. Don't act like you care about the well-being of people, Yuki. Yuki's gaze hardened. Well, maybe I don't, he said. But that doesn't mean I'm anything like you. Relax, Loki replied lightly. All I'm looking to do is create a bit of harmless chaos. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes gleaming. But in order to do that, I'm missing something. Or you could say, someone. Yuki narrowed his eyes. And that being? Loki's smile widened. The storm dragon. Veldora. Yuki stiffened, his composure cracking for just a moment. You mean the dragon that was sealed over 300 years ago? Indeed, Loki answered without hesitation. I'm planning to get him unsealed, but I won't be able to do it alone. Yuki shook his head slowly. Do you understand what you're planning? He said. Veldora is a calamity that thinks of nothing but destruction. Unsealing him is honestly just dumb. Loki waved the concern away. Don't worry about that. I'm actually good buddies with Veldora. He won't get out of hand. Yuki stared at him, disbelief written all over his face. All right, Yuki said cautiously. Then how do you plan on unsealing him? Loki's eyes gleamed with amusement. That's where you and your clowns come in. Yuki's expression darkened instantly. Explain. The key to unsealing Veldora lies within the holy empire of Lobilius, Loki said calmly. And I'm planning to raid it. Yuki shot to his feet. Are you crazy? He snapped. That nation has insane military strength. That's basically suicide. Loki grinned. Well, yes, that's exactly why I need your help. He continued casually. I'm quite strong, sure, but I haven't ascended to Demon Lord yet. I don't see myself defeating Luminous Valentine, Louis Valentine, Roy Valentine, Hinata Sakaguchi, the Temple Knights. Yuki pinched the bridge of his nose. This all sounds insane, he muttered. Besides, what's in this for me? Loki's smile sharpened. I get to keep your secret a secret, he said smoothly. And I don't expose your plans of taking over the Eastern Empire to the Emperor. Yuki clicked his tongue sharply. I've been caught. He let out a slow breath. There's no way to say no in this situation, is there? Loki answered by flashing a wide, delighted smile. Now then, Yuki, he said. Let's talk about how we successfully invade Demon Lord Lu. Chapter 75. I'm from Japan too. After the two finished discussing the plan to invade the holy empire of Lobilius, a brief silence settled over the room. The air felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were listening. Loki, who had been leaning lazily against the desk, suddenly straightened, his eyes flickering with faint curiosity. Oh, by the way, Loki said, as if it were an afterthought, do you know where I can find Shizue? Yuki's expression tightened almost instantly. His brows furrowed, and his sharp gaze locked onto the demon before him. Why do you want to know where my sensei is? Yuki asked. Loki waved a hand dismissively. Relax. Me and Shizue are friends. Yuki scoffed lightly. Sorry, but I find that hard to believe. Loki blinked, then chuckled softly. Is that so? So she's never spoken about me. That's sad. Yuki hesitated, His mind flickered back to a memory. Shizue, during one of her visits, casually mentioned, so it was him. Yuki studied Loki again. His relaxed posture, his careless smile, the sheer pressure he gave off, it didn't match the image Shizue had described. This demon is nothing like how she explained him. Pushing those thoughts aside, Yuki exhaled quietly. Yes, Yuki said, regaining his composure. Shizue-sensei did mention you. I had simply forgotten. Loki's lips curved upward in a pleased smile. Then I suppose you won't have a problem telling me where she is. Yuki folded his arms. I could tell you where my sensei is. But first I have to ask, what do you want to do with her? Loki paused for a moment, then shrugged. Well, there's an otherworlder I rescued in some kingdom. Honestly, I don't want to deal with keeping watch over her and all that troublesome responsibility. So I figured I'd leave her with Shizue. Oh, Yuki said, interest flashing in his eyes. An otherworlder. She's down at the reception, waiting, Loki replied casually. Oh? Then may I meet her? Yuki asked. Sure. Why not? Loki said. The two stood from their seats. As they prepared to leave, Loki suddenly glanced back at Yuki, his eyes narrowing slightly. Oh, Yuki, Loki said. You should probably change your outfit first. Walking around with bloodstains like that is bound to cause a panic. Yuki looked down at himself and froze. Oh, you're right, he said with a light laugh. Give me a second. He turned and walked over to the cupboard inside his office. Opening it, he pulled out a clean shirt and swiftly changed, discarding the stained one. Well then, Yuki said calmly, shall we go? Loki nodded and turned toward the door, already walking out. Yuki followed a step behind him, his expression neutral. If I fought him here, Yuki thought, his mind calculating coldly, I could most probably win. His gaze hardened slightly. But what's the point of killing this demon, when I can use him to achieve my goals? A faint smile formed beneath his calm exterior. Yes, this is better. For now, I'll let him think I'm beneath him. The two finally made their way down from the upper floors. The air grew livelier as they approached the reception area, the soft murmur of voices echoing faintly through the hall. Rain stood near the counter, speaking with the receptionist while Karara waited beside them. The moment Rain's eyes landed on Loki and Yuki approaching, her posture straightened. Loki, you done? Rain asked. Loki raised a thumb casually. Yes, just one more stop after this. Then we head back to the castle. Rain sighed. Just know, Guy-sama is going to be extremely mad. Loki smirked. Don't worry about Guy. If anything, I'd love for him to be mad. Maybe then he'd finally fight me. Yuki stepped forward slightly. Hello. Rain glanced at him briefly, then looked away as if he didn't exist. Yuki blinked. She seems to not like me, he muttered, then turned to Loki. Pointing toward Karara, he added, So that's the otherworlder. Yep, Loki said. That's her. Karara looked up as she noticed attention on her. She saw Yuki approaching and straightened. Yuki extended his hand with a polite smile. Hello, my name is Yuki Kagarazaka. Karara stood and shook his hand, smiling warmly. Hello, my name is Karara. She hesitated for a moment, then asked cautiously, Are you an otherworlder as well? Yuki's smile widened slightly. Yes, and from your name and appearance, it seems we might be from the same country. Karara's face lit up. Yes, I'm from Japan too. To think I'd find someone else from Japan here. Yuki chuckled. It's quite nice meeting a fellow countryman here. Karara's eyes widened. So there are other Japanese here? Yes, Yuki replied. Actually, Shizue is from Japan as well. You'll meet her when you head to her. Karara smiled brightly. Really? I want to meet her and the other Japanese too. Yuki nodded. Meeting Hinata under normal circumstances would be difficult. But with Shizue, Loki watched the two converse, arms folded. Actually, he thought dryly, there's another Japanese standing right behind you, you know. Yuki turned back to Karara. I'd love to stay and chat more, but we'll have to do that another time. Being a grandmaster is no easy job. I have so much work to catch up on. That's fine, Karara said gently. Just knowing there's another Japanese person like me here makes me happy. Yuki smiled, then turned to Loki. Loki, my sensei is currently at Freedom Academy. She's teaching and taking care of other summoned children there. Other summoned kids as well? Loki asked. Yuki's expression dimmed slightly. Yes, but their fates are quite terrible. Oh, Loki said. In what sense? You see, Yuki continued, since these children were summoned at a young age, their bodies can't handle the magicules. Most of them will likely die by the age of 10. Sensei simply tries to make their lives a little better before they pass. Karara gasped softly, placing a hand over her mouth. Her eyes shimmered. That's so sad. Loki glanced at her, disbelief flickering across his face. This selfish girl actually cares about other people, he thought. How shocking. Rain crossed her arms. That's sad and all, but can we leave now? Loki turned toward her with an exaggerated look of pity. Rain, how cold-hearted can you be? Not feeling even a little compassion for those kids. Rain snapped back immediately. What? You're a demon too. Don't tell me you care. Yuki laughed lightly. All right, let's calm down. He then looked at Loki. Shall I have someone accompany you? No need, Loki replied. Just point us in the right direction. I'll teleport us there. Yuki paused. Wait, you can teleport to places you've never been to? Yes, Loki said simply. I have universal perception. I see, Yuki said, impressed. That is quite handy. Very well, then I'll show you. Chapter 76. Bordeaux-san? Loki stood calmly as Yuki finished relaying the information. The room was quiet, the air faintly tense, as if something unseen was watching. I got it, Loki said at last. I guess we'll just head there right now. Yuki nodded. All right. Loki turned slightly, a faint grin tugging at his lips. Don't forget about our plan now. Don't worry about that, Yuki replied smoothly. You should focus on your own part. Loki let out a quiet chuckle. Of course. Rain's eyes narrowed instantly. Loki, what plan are you talking about? Don't worry about it, Rain. Rain crossed her arms, irritation clearly written on her face. Whatever it is you're planning, it better not disrupt. Loki's throat tightened. TCH, she's sharp. Well, he started. Rain took a step forward, her voice rising with anger. Loki, you better spill it. Some other time, Loki said quickly. Right now, we need to leave. He raised his hand, magical energy quietly gathering as space itself began to distort, just as the teleportation circle was about to complete. Oh, Loki, by the way. Loki paused and glanced back. What is it? You should sign up as an adventurer sometime, if you're interested, Yuki said casually. Adventurer, Loki repeated, tilting his head. Yes, Yuki continued. We could use people as powerful as you to deal with all the monsters in this nation. Loki fell silent for a moment. Adventurer, monsters, ranks. Does it pay well? He asked. Yuki chuckled awkwardly. Well, it depends on the adventurer, I suppose. Loki smiled. Then I'll give it a thought. If you decide to do it, Yuki said, please let me know. I'll arrange everything for you. All right, Loki replied. Got it. Gilda straightened behind the counter and bowed politely. Thank you for visiting. Please come back again sometime. In the next instant, magic surged. Rain, Loki, and Karara vanished from the room as space folded inward. Yuki turned his attention to the receptionist. Thank you for your hard work, Gilda. She smiled warmly. It's my pleasure, Grandmaster. Yuki gave a small nod and walked away. His footsteps echoed softly through the hallway as he made his way deeper into the building. By the time he reached his office, the friendly smile on his face had vanished completely. The door closed behind him with a quiet click. Yuki walked over to his desk and sat down heavily in his chair. The room felt still, almost oppressive. He exhaled slowly, then activated long-distance thought communication. Instantly, his consciousness connected with another presence. Boss, do you need me? Kigali's voice came through. Yes, Kigali, Yuki said. We might have run into a problem. Oh, Kigali replied. What kind of problem? Yuki hesitated, fingers tightening slightly on the armrest. Kigali, can I ask you a question? Of course, boss. Ask me anything. Do you think there is a traitor among the troop? There was a brief pause. What makes you think so? Kigali asked, clearly taken aback. There was a very powerful demon who came to see me today, Yuki said. And it seemed he knew basically everything about me, including you, the troop, my ties to the Eastern Empire, even my skill. What? Kigali exclaimed. I know, Yuki replied. That's why I think there might be a traitor among us. But who could it be? Kigali said, her voice tense. I don't know, Yuki admitted, and I don't want to believe there is a traitor among us. That's true, Kigali said softly. So what do you want me to do, boss? Should I perform an internal investigation? Yes, Yuki said. Also, see if you can find information on a demon named Loki. Anything will do. I will do so, boss. Oh, Yuki added, and arrange a meeting with the troop 1 week from now. We'll meet in Bloomend. All right. The thought communication cut off. Yuki leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling as silence filled the room once more. Slowly, a smile spread across his face. Loki, he murmured, you will be a valuable pawn. Back at the Freedom Academy, the afternoon sun streamed through the tall classroom windows, illuminating rows of wooden desks worn smooth by years of use. 5 children sat attentively, their eyes fixed on the woman standing at the front of the room. Shizue Izawa stood calmly, hands folded as she explained the lesson in her usual gentle tone. No, Kenya, Shizue said with a small smile. I cannot beat a true dragon. Kenya Misaki's eyes widened. Without warning, he slammed his desk, the sharp sound echoing through the classroom. Why don't you believe in your own power, sensei? He shouted. I believe you could definitely do it. Chloe Albert puffed out her cheeks in frustration. Kenya, don't shout at sensei like that. Alice Rondo nodded firmly. Yes, Kenya, that's rude. Kenya clenched his fists. But it's just that I know sensei is the strongest. Shizue blinked, then let out a soft chuckle. Thank you for believing in me, Kenya. You know what? You're right. I should believe in myself more. The tension in the room eased, and the children relaxed slightly. But Shizue's expression suddenly stiffened. Her gaze shifted toward the academy walls, her senses flaring. What are these 2 incredibly powerful presences? In an instant, her demeanor changed. She straightened, reached for her sword, and gripped the hilt tightly. Kids, Shizue said quickly but calmly. I need to go somewhere real quick. There's something I need to see to. Ryota Sekiguchi looked up, concern clear on his face. Sensei, is there a problem? Shizue smiled gently, masking her tension. No problem at all. You just stay here and wait. I'll be right back. Okay? Before any of them could respond, she turned, opened the door, and stepped out into the corridor. The moment the door closed behind her, she broke into a run, moving swiftly toward the source of the presences. Suddenly, a familiar voice echoed within her. Relax, Shizue. This is someone who will not cause harm. Ha! Shizue muttered under her breath. How do you know that? Because, Ifrit replied calmly. I'll never forget that presence. What is he talking about? Ifrit had always spoken like this, half-statements and riddles wrapped in certainty, leaving her to piece together the meaning herself. With her grip tightening around her sword, Shizue quickened her pace. At the massive gate of Freedom Academy, 3 figures stood quietly. Rain glanced around at the tall walls and carefully layered barriers. So this is the Freedom Academy, huh? Loki nodded casually. Yep, Shizue should be here. Behind them, Karara remained silent, her gaze fixed on the academy grounds. Shizue, another Japanese, she thought. I wonder how she'll respond to me being here. Suddenly, a powerful presence surged forward. A woman clad entirely in white came blazing toward them, sword already in hand, her stance sharp and ready to strike. But the moment her eyes locked onto the figures before her, she froze. Her breath caught in her throat. "Bordeaux-san," Shizue exclaimed in shock. So that's what Ifrit was trying to say. Loki smiled, utterly relaxed in contrast to her rigid stance. He casually raised his hand and gave a small wave. "Hey, Shizue," he said. "Oh, and by the way, it's not Bordeaux anymore." He grinned. "I have a name now. It's Loki." Chapter 77. Shizue is stronger than me. Shizue remained frozen for a brief moment, her grip on her sword loosening as the weight of Loki's words finally sank in. "Loki?" she repeated. "Wait, you have a name now? Is that not bad?" Loki tilted his head, genuinely puzzled. "Huh? Why would that be bad?" Shizue paused, eyes shifting slightly as she thought it through. If some other primordial had been named, that would be terrifying. She shook her head lightly. Actually, never mind. If it were another primordial, that would be bad. But because it's you, she smiled softly. I'm not scared at all. A visible vein popped on Loki's forehead. What's that supposed to mean? He snapped. Before Shizue could respond, another voice cut in. So that's the Shizue Izawa you were talking about. Loki turned sharply. Wait, Rain? You know her. Rain crossed her arms, eyes calmly assessing Shizue. Of course. Gai-sama has misery and me keep watch over individuals who could potentially tip the balance of the world. Shizue Izawa, with the power of Ifrit, naturally fits that bill. Shizue blinked, then turned toward Loki. Loki-san, who is this? Loki gestured lazily. This is Rain. He paused, then added, almost as an afterthought, technically, she's my elder sister. The words hit Shizue like a shockwave. His sister? Then that means she's a primordial too. Her expression stiffened slightly. Is it really okay for two primordials to be here at the same time? Her thoughts drifted further, unbidden. But Loki-san doesn't seem to like me the same way I like him. But if I became close with his sister, could that change? Her cheeks warmed faintly. Stop thinking nonsense, Shizue. She straightened, regaining her composure, and turned to Rain with a polite smile. It's nice to meet you, Rain-chan. Rain returned the smile, relaxed and friendly. It's nice to meet you too, Shizue. Shizue then looked back at Loki. So, Loki, what brings you here? I'm sure you're not just here to greet me and spend time together. Loki scratched the back of his head and smiled awkwardly. Well, seeing you is good and all, but basically, he sighed, I'm here to dump something I don't want to deal with on you. What? Shizue said, confused. Rain stepped aside. Behind her stood a young girl. Shizue's eyes immediately fixed on her. Her breath caught slightly. She looks Japanese, doesn't she? Shizue turned back to Loki. Now who is this? Loki pointed at the girl dramatically. This is Karara, a Japanese otherworlder I saved from some abusive kingdom of Falmouth. He shrugged. And since I don't want to look after her, I came here to see if you could. Shizue whispered softly, almost inaudible, Japanese. Before anyone could react, she rushed forward, wrapped her arms around Karara, and pulled her into a tight embrace. Thank God you're safe, Shizue said, relief pouring into her voice. Loki froze. Huh? She's changed. The old Shizue wouldn't have hugged someone like this. Not in public. Karara's body trembled, and tears welled up in her eyes. It was so scary. Shizue gently wiped away her tears. Don't worry. I'll look after you. Okay? Karara nodded, clutching Shizue's clothes tightly. Loki stared at the scene in stunned silence. I don't know whether she's actually scared or just pretending. His expression darkened slightly. The novel version of Karara really pissed me off. Even now, I constantly have to restrain the urge to just hit her with a Hakai. Shizue turned back to Loki with a gentle smile, her eyes softening. Good job bringing her to safety, Loki. Loki tilted his head and returned the smile, casual as ever. It's only natural. Shizue then cocked her head, a teasing grin playing on her lips. But you're still terrible for not wanting to keep her safe. Loki's face went pale, almost comically so, while Karara and Rain exchanged puzzled looks. Rain furrowed her brows. Wait, did you just say countryman? Karara's eyes widened in disbelief. No way, this ruthless monster could be Japanese, right? Shizue's smile faltered as she realized she had just revealed something she probably shouldn't have. She inwardly cursed herself. Loki, however, quickly composed himself, a small smirk returning to his face. When she says countryman, she means we're both from the Cardinal World. Rain exhaled, relief crossing her features. Oh, so that's what it is. Karara, however, was unconvinced, staring at Rain with utter disbelief. He's obviously lying. There's no way this monster is Japanese. Shizue clasped her hands together, letting out a soft laugh. Loki, you do know what we do here at the Freedom Academy, right? Loki tilted his head, thinking. I guess, you look after kids that are about to die? Shizue twitched slightly, internally sighing. Well, that's technically right, but why phrase it like that? She smiled politely. Basically that's it, but the school is much larger, and my class is not the only one. Loki raised an eyebrow. Is that so? Yes, Shizue said warmly, smiling brightly. Would you like to see my students? Loki hesitated for a moment. Really? Won't they be scared? Not to brag, but I am a demon. Shizue let out a soft sigh, exasperated yet gentle. Don't worry about that. As long as you contain your magicules, they won't be able to see you as a demon. Loki smirked. Well, all right, let's go then. The four of them walked through the academy, the air alive with the faint scent of parchment and chalk, the muffled chatter of children from distant classrooms echoing down the hallways. Finally, they arrived at the door to Shizue's class. Shizue opened it and stepped in, her presence calm but commanding. Students, I finished what I needed to fix, but I came back with some guests. Please be respectful. Ryota frowned, leaning forward in curiosity. Guests? Sensei never brings guests. Shizue chuckled softly. That's because I don't know that many people. She collapsed her hands together and gestured for them to enter, and the three walked into the classroom. As Loki stepped in, his eyes landed on Chloe Albert. A slow, bemused smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. Chloe Albert, what a plot twist. Awakening her was definitely a game changer. To think such a literal weapon is in a child's body, this makes zero sense. An actually awakened Chloe could easily defeat his current self. Shizue began introducing them. Class, this is Karara. She is an otherworlder, just like you. The class froze in shock. Alice's hand shot up. Wait, Karara is from another world? Karara nodded, trying to stay composed. Yes. Kenya frowned, confusion written all over his face. Wait, so how is she still alive? Chloe tilted her head, speaking softly. Most probably, she was summoned after the age of Shizue raised a hand, trying to ease the atmosphere. And this right here is Rain, and next to her is her little brother, Loki. Kenya's eyes flicked to Loki, a spark of awe and curiosity flashing in them. He's strong, Shizue added. Actually, Loki is the only one I've truly fought alongside. Kenya's excitement grew. So, Sensei, he was able to keep up with you? He must be incredibly strong. Shizue smiled faintly. Certainly. Kenya leaned forward, eyes shining. Oh, so who's stronger between you two? Without hesitation, Loki answered, his tone casual yet confident. Shizue is miles stronger than me. The classroom went silent. Karara, Rain, and Shizue herself all turned to him in unison. Expressions a mixture of shock, disbelief, and confusion. No, we all know that's definitely not true, were their thoughts. Even Loki noticed the collective look of bewilderment, but he remained nonchalant, as if daring them to argue. Chapter 78. Make her look good. Shizue waved her hands lightly in front of her, shaking her head as she smiled. No, no. Don't be so humble, Loki-san, she said warmly. You are definitely stronger than me. Loki answered without missing a beat, his expression calm and sincere. No, you need not be so humble, Shizue, he replied. You are definitely stronger than me. Rain, standing a short distance away with her arms crossed, narrowed her eyes slightly. What's the point of this, she thought. Kenya leaned forward, resting his elbows on his desk, eyes practically sparkling. Well, if you can't decide, he said eagerly, why not just have a battle? Alice immediately turned toward him, clearly irritated. Kenya, you just love violence, she said. Why does it always have to be fights with you? Gale nodded in agreement, his voice calmer. Yeah, there's really no need to be fighting. For a moment, it seemed like the idea would be dropped. But then Loki spoke. Actually, he said, a faint grin forming, I think it's a great idea. Shizue froze. Her eyes widened slightly as she turned to look at him. She remembered their previous encounter all too well, back when Loki hadn't even been named yet, when the gap between their strengths had been painfully obvious. I was nowhere near him then, she thought. Even now, that hasn't changed. She quickly stepped closer and lowered her voice. Loki-san, she whispered urgently. What's the meaning of this? Loki leaned down just enough to answer quietly. Don't worry, he said. This is just to make you look good. We'll have a fight, but I'll let you win. Shizue blinked, confusion flashing across her face. No, she whispered back. I still don't get what the point is. Loki's gaze shifted briefly toward the children, who were now watching them with growing anticipation. Think of it as a practical, he said calmly. A chance for the kids to see how proper combat should go. A hint of amusement entered his voice. And it doubles as entertainment, doesn't it? Shizue hesitated. She looked at the eager faces around her, the excitement barely contained. After a few seconds, she let out a small sigh. Fine, she said, but we cannot cause large-scale damage. Loki straightened and raised his voice slightly. Well then, he said, clapping his hands once. Shall we go to a training ground? The tension instantly melted. The kids erupted into cheers, excitement filling the air. Yes, Sensei's gonna fight. This is gonna be awesome. The training grounds were wide and open, reinforced with sturdy magic barriers and scorched marks from countless past lessons. The air felt heavier the moment Loki and Shizue stepped into the center. They stood facing one another. The children gathered along the edges, voices ringing out loudly. You can do it, Sensei. Come on, Sensei. Beat him. Loki glanced over at them and raised an eyebrow. Is nobody going to cheer for me? Chloe didn't hesitate for even a second. No, she said flatly. Nobody is cheering for you. Boo! The rest of the kids joined in immediately. Boo! Loki let out an awkward chuckle, rubbing the back of his head. Wow, he muttered. That's cold. He turned back toward Shizue, his expression settling into something more focused. So, Loki said, how should we do this? Shizue adjusted her grip on her sword, grounding herself. I guess anything is fine, she replied. As long as we don't destroy school property and don't kill each other. Loki nodded. That's easy. He shifted his stance. Whenever you're ready, he said calmly. The cheers slowly died down. The training ground fell silent. For a brief moment, neither of them moved. The wind brushed across the training ground, stirring dust along the reinforced stone floor. The children leaned forward unconsciously, eyes locked on the two figures standing at the center. Shizue inhaled slowly. Then, she stepped forward. Her sword flashed from its sheath in a smooth, practiced motion, the blade glinting under the sunlight as she closed the distance in an instant. Loki's eyes widened just a little. Oh! He hopped backward, narrowly avoiding the first slash as the tip of her blade skimmed past his chest. The kids gasped. Shizue didn't stop. She flowed into a second strike, then a third, her movements sharp and efficient. Each swing carried intent with enough force to test and to pressure. Loki backpedaled clumsily, boots scraping against the stone. "Wait, Shizue," he said, raising his hands defensively as if flustered. "You're not holding back at all." Kenya clenched his fists. "Yeah, that's our sensei." Rain watched silently from the sidelines, unimpressed. That was a terrible dodge, she thought flatly. He could have avoided that without moving. Shizue pivoted and kicked off the ground, spinning midair as her blade came down in a clean vertical arc. Loki barely managed to slide to the side. The blade struck the ground with a sharp clang, sending sparks flying. "Nice," Loki said, grinning. "That was close." Shizue narrowed her eyes. She didn't hesitate. Magicules surged through her body, subtle but controlled. Flames licked faintly along her blade as Ifrit's power responded to her will. "Sensei's using fire," Alice exclaimed. Shizue thrust forward. A wave of heat burst from the sword, just enough to scorch the air. Loki yelped and threw himself backward, rolling across the ground before scrambling to his feet, smoke rising from the edge of his coat. Okay, he laughed nervously. "That one actually stung." Chloe crossed her arms, unimpressed. "He's so weak." Loki glanced at her. "Ouch." Shizue pressed the advantage. She dashed forward again, this time faster, her footwork tight and deliberate. Loki raised his arm to block, or at least it looked like a block. Her blade struck his forearm. A sharp clang rang out. Loki staggered backward, sliding several meters before catching himself. The kids erupted. "Did you see that?" She pushed him back. "Sensei's amazing." Shizue felt her heart pound. "He's really letting me lead," she thought. "But this feels good." She adjusted her stance, breathing steady, sword angled forward. "Are you all right, Loki-san?" she asked, genuine concern in her voice. Loki straightened slowly, rubbing his arm as if sore. "I'm just getting started," he said dramatically. Loki suddenly rushed forward. The shift was immediate. The kids gasped as he closed the distance, his movements suddenly sharper. His strikes were fast enough to challenge, but slow enough to follow. He threw a straight punch. Shizue deflected it with the flat of her blade. He spun into a low sweep. She jumped over it. Loki overextended on purpose. Shizue saw the opening. Her eyes sharpened. Now, she stepped inside his guard and struck with the hilt of her sword, driving it into his chest. Ugh! Loki stumbled backward, coughing theatrically as he fell onto his back, sliding across the stone before stopping just short of the barrier. Silence filled the air. Then massive cheers erupted. "Woo! She got him! Sensei wins!" Kenya practically bounced in place. "Yes, Sensei is the strongest." Shizue froze, staring at Loki on the ground. "I didn't hit you too hard, did I?" Loki lay there for a second. Then he burst out laughing. "Nope," he said cheerfully, sitting up. "That was perfect." He rose to his feet and dusted himself off, then turned toward the kids. "Well," he said, spreading his arms. "What did you think?" The children cheered again, louder this time. Shizue felt her chest tighten. A warmth spread through her. "They're happy," she thought. Chapter 79, Velzard's Feelings. Loki slumped down onto the edge of the training ground, shoulders sagging dramatically. "I lost," he muttered, staring at the ground like a defeated hero. Shizue twitched slightly. On purpose, though, she thought. Chloe and Alice were the first to approach him. Alice placed a hand gently on Loki's shoulder, her expression sincere. "I'm sorry, Loki-san." Chloe nodded firmly. "Yes, next time you'll definitely land at least one hit on Sensei." Gale stepped closer as well, offering a small smile. "Yeah, don't feel bad." Loki looked up slowly, eyes shimmering as if on the verge of tears. "You guys," he said, his voice trembling just enough to sell it. Karara stared at him from a short distance away, her mouth slightly open. Is this really the same demon, she thought, who threatened to flatten all of Falmouth with a meteor? Rain, standing with her arms crossed, gave him a flat look. Failure of a demon. On the other side of the field, Kenya and Ryota had completely ignored Loki and rushed toward Shizue instead. Kenya was practically glowing. Sensei, that was so cool. You were like bam, boom, and Loki-san didn't stand a chance. Shizue laughed awkwardly, brushing a hand through her hair. Is that so? Ryota smiled shyly. Sensei, you were really cool. Shizue's expression softened. Seeing their smiles, genuine and bright, her heart warmed. She returned the smile without realizing it, then slowly turned her gaze toward Loki, who was still surrounded by Chloe, Alice, and Gale. She walked over. Loki noticed her approach and quickly stood up, straightening himself. Loki-san, Shizue said softly. Thank you. He blinked. For what? It's been a while, she continued, since I've seen them this happy. Loki chuckled lightly, rubbing the back of his head. Don't worry about it. After a brief pause, Shizue spoke again. If you don't mind, I could arrange a place for you to stay the night. I don't know if demons sleep, but… Nope, Loki replied quickly. I actually have to head back to the north now. Rain shot him a sharp look. Or I will seriously kill you. Loki winced. You see? Very dangerous. Rain narrowed her eyes. You're worried about me instead of Gai-sama? Just how does your sense of danger even work? Shizue looked surprised. Oh, but traveling from here to the north would take quite a while, wouldn't it? Loki waved it off. Don't worry, I can teleport. Shizue froze for half a second. Ah, she said, realization hitting her. You're a primordial. Of course you can teleport. Loki smiled. He turned toward Rain. Let's go. Rain nodded sharply. Quickly. I have a bad feeling Gai-sama is already angry. Karara suddenly stepped forward. Loki-sama. He turned back. Karara bowed deeply. Thank you for everything. Loki looked at her quietly. Her future might be different now compared to the novel, he thought, especially with Shizue looking after her. He smiled gently. Don't mention it. His gaze drifted past her, to the children. There is a way to save these kids, he thought, having them become hosts for greater spirits. But he didn't have time to do that for now. And besides, that would mean meeting Ramiris. His thoughts shifted naturally. Small world really is a ridiculous skill. To say he hadn't thought about forming a nation would be a lie. Being a king sounded cool. But then reality always caught up. I'm not Rimuru, and I'm not as smart as him, he admitted to himself. If I tried to recreate Tempest, it would flop. And more importantly, he wanted Rimuru's inventions. The food, the culture, the absurd quality of life upgrades. Sure, he could figure them out eventually. But he didn't care enough to. He wanted good fights, chaos, something funny. Still, maybe I don't have to rule alone. Co-found Tempest. Let Rimuru handle the boring stuff. Or make Rimuru my subordinate. A small grin formed on Loki's face at the thought. Finally, he turned back toward Shizue and then the kids. Shizue, he said calmly, and all you kids. They all looked at him. I promise, Loki continued, his voice firm. I won't let you die. Shizue's breath caught. I'll find a way, he said. I will save your lives. Her heart tightened painfully. Indeed, Shizue thought, I really do like Loki-san. And in the next instant, Loki and Rain vanished, space folding in on itself as they teleported away. Kenya turned back toward Shizue, his eyes wide and shining with expectation. Sensei, he asked, his voice trembling just slightly. Is what Loki-san said true? Can he really save us? Alice stepped closer as well, clasping her hands together. Yes, Sensei, is it really true? Shizue's gaze lingered on the empty space where Loki had vanished moments ago. A gentle smile slowly formed on her lips. Yes, she said softly. I believe Loki-san can save you all. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then cheers erupted. The children laughed, smiled, and celebrated as if a heavy weight had finally been lifted from their hearts. Hope, real, undeniable hope, spread through them like wildfire. Shizue watched them quietly, her chest tightening with emotion. She then turned to Karara. Loki-san is a good person, isn't he? Shizue said. Karara smiled, nodding. My first impression of him was fear, she admitted. But in less than a day, my entire view of him changed. He's the complete opposite of what I imagined a demon would be. Shizue smiled warmly. Well then, she said, clasping her hands together. What would you like to do, Karara? Karara blinked. Ha! I can take you to where I live, Shizue continued. You could stay there. Or, she paused, then smiled again. You could stay here at the Freedom Academy with me. You'd be something like an assistant teacher. Karara fell silent. She looked around at the academy, at the children, at Shizue. This place feels warm, she thought. After a moment, she smiled. I want to repay you for your kindness, Karara said. So, I'll help you here, at the academy. Shizue nodded approvingly. All right. She turned toward the still celebrating children and clapped her hands. Okay, everyone, that's enough. It's time to go back. We have more history to learn. Groans instantly followed. Do we have to? Kenya complained. Alice nodded in agreement. Can't we do it tomorrow? Shizue crossed her arms. No, education is important. Now come on, let's go. The kids sighed dramatically but obeyed, slowly heading back toward the school building. Chapter 80, Loki's True Terrifying Strength. Elsewhere, in the frozen north, space warped. In an instant, Loki and Rain appeared inside Guy's frozen castle, the air frigid and heavy with ancient power. Loki stretched his arms and shouted cheerfully, We're back! Before Rain could even react, Loki was suddenly tackled forward. Soft, warm, and very close. He stiffened as arms wrapped tightly around him, pressing him into something distinctly not frozen. He felt the close proximity of the woman hugging him, feeling her soft embrace. Ha! He looked up. Velzard. She was smiling brightly, her arms locked around him in a tight embrace. Loki, she said happily. You're back. Then, grinning even wider, she added, I thought you'd take longer. I just know you were out causing havoc. Her smile turned sultry as she leaned in slightly. So, Velzard said, her voice low and playful. Tell me everything about it. Rain sighed deeply. Of course. For Velzard, Loki was a breath of fresh air. She was the dragon of deceleration, also known as fixation or stagnation, the one tasked by her older brother Veldanava to guide the world and ensure its balance, to stop events that would tip the scales too far in any direction. Her existence was restraint, control, and stillness. One of the reasons she had fallen for Guy more than 20,000 years ago was because he was her opposite. Chaotic, violent, and exciting. But the Guy of now, he wasn't the same. Velzard's gaze lingered on Loki, eyes glinting with interest. Loki was different. He did what he wanted when he wanted. He didn't care about expectations, rules, or balance. He was fun. If only he were stronger than me, she thought, her smile deepening. Then I might really fall for him. Velzard had Loki pinned beneath her with frightening ease, her arms wrapped around him like she was holding onto something precious. Her smile was radiant. Loki, however, looked like a man being suffocated by affection. His eyes darted away for a second, then back, as if searching for an escape route that didn't exist. Well, Loki finally forced himself to speak, his voice strained. I kind of fought a mage from Falmouth. Velzard's eyes widened slightly, but her smile only grew. Loki continued. I beat him, he said casually. Then I dropped a meteor on him. Rain, standing nearby, looked away as if she wanted to pretend she hadn't heard that. Loki scratched the back of his head, which he unfortunately managed to stop. Loki added with a sigh. So now I have to take him as a subordinate. Velzard blinked. You dropped a meteor, she repeated, sounding genuinely entertained. Loki nodded like it was the most normal thing in the world. After that, I met an interesting guy named Yuki. Had a small clash with him, Loki continued. Then I went to see my friend Shizue. That's about it. The entire time Loki spoke, Velzard didn't break eye contact even once. She stared directly into his eyes with an almost predatory curiosity, like she was looking through him, trying to read the truth between every word. It made Loki sweat from the sheer pressure. This woman, her eye contact is way too intense. Velzard hummed softly, still smiling. Oh, she said sweetly. And these interactions. She leaned in slightly. They're just prequels to something more interesting, right? Loki's expression stiffened for half a second. She's too intelligent. Technically, the Yuki situation was a plan to stir up trouble in the Holy Empire of Lubelius. But he couldn't let Velzard know. If the guy found out, he would shut it down before it even began. Loki forced a lazy smile. No, he said. Just some normal interactions. Velzard's smile widened even further, as if she had just been gifted a new toy. Secrets, she whispered, her voice dripping with amusement. How exciting! Her eyes gleamed. I get to play investigator. Loki's sweat increased. He swallowed. Velzard, Loki said carefully. Can you get off the top of me now, please? Velzard blinked innocently. What? She asked, still smiling. Am I making you uncomfortable? Loki opened his mouth, but his words refused to come out properly. His brain was screaming at him to retreat, while his pride was screaming at him to stay put. And then the door opened. Cold air flooded in like a divine blessing. Guy Crimson stepped into the room with the calm presence of a king, misery trailing silently behind him like a shadow. The moment Loki saw him, it genuinely felt like salvation had arrived. Guy's eyes immediately landed on the scene. Velzard. Loki, Guy said flatly. What are you two doing? But then his gaze shifted, as if he instantly lost interest. Never mind that. His crimson eyes narrowed as he focused fully on Loki. Loki, Guy said, his voice colder than the castle itself. Where have you been? Velzard finally pushed herself up from Loki, her movements smooth and unhurried. She dusted herself off as if she hadn't just been smothering a demon in an embrace. Then she turned toward Guy, her smile playful. Guy, she said, are you not even a bit jealous? Guy didn't even blink. If Leon was the one getting that close to Loki, he replied, then I probably would be. A flicker of displeasure passed through Velzard's face. It was subtle, but it was there. Then she immediately smoothed her expression, as if the emotion had never existed. Loki sat up and cracked his neck like nothing happened. He stood, walked over to the nearest couch, and plopped down lazily, stretching his arms across the backrest like a king lounging on his throne. Then he smirked. Guy, Loki said casually. I didn't know you were my father now. Guy's expression didn't change. Loki continued, his voice full of mocking amusement. Do I need to report everything I do to you? Guy's eyes sharpened slightly. No, he replied. But Loki, we had a deal, didn't we? Loki shrugged like it was nothing. We did, he admitted. And I held up my end of the bargain. He leaned forward slightly, his smile turning sharper. So I'll be taking my 10,000 souls. Guy chuckled, the sound echoing faintly through the frozen chamber. And, Guy said calmly, what was the reason for your rampage in Falmouth? Rain immediately stepped forward and bowed deeply. Guy-sama, she said quickly. I tried stopping him, but he wouldn't listen. Guy waved his hand dismissively without even looking at her. Don't worry about it, Rain, he said. Then, with the cruelest calm imaginable, he added, I expected nothing from you anyway. Rain froze. Her eyes widened as if she had just been stabbed. Guy-sama. Her voice cracked, pain leaking through her composure. But Loki's eyes narrowed slightly. But Guy-sama, she cried out desperately. Loki is too strong. Even if I wanted to use force to bring him back, I couldn't. Misery's eyes narrowed. Rain, Misery said sharply. You have disappointed Guy-sama. Don't speak anymore. Rain snapped her head toward Misery. But Misery, she protested. You know what I'm talking about. Guy rubbed his temple slowly, as if the very act of listening to them was giving him a headache. Velzard, meanwhile, stepped forward with a graceful sigh. "Guy," she said calmly. "Just let it off this time." She glanced at Loki, then back at Guy. At least he didn't create large-scale destruction or anything of the sort. Guy's gaze remained locked onto Loki, unreadable. "The deal," Guy said coldly, "was to cause chaos at the border and then return." The temperature in the room seemed to drop even further. "But you went ahead and did your own thing, Loki." Guy's lips curled slightly into something between a smile and a threat. "So unfortunately, the deal is off." Silence. Absolute silence. Loki's lazy posture stiffened. His eyes slowly lifted toward Guy. Gone was the playful grin. Gone was the carefree attitude. His gaze turned cold, so cold it felt like it could cut through the air itself. "You wouldn't scam me like that," Loki said quietly. "Would you, Guy?" Guy smiled. "The rules were simple," Guy replied, "and you failed to follow them." He shrugged lightly. "Too bad." Then he leaned forward slightly, his voice calm and merciless. "You could have completed your harvest festival instantly." Loki's jaw tightened. His teeth gritted so hard it looked like they might crack. His hands clenched into fists, nails digging into his palms. This piece of trash, he thought. The following day, Loki was lying sprawled on his bed, one arm behind his head, staring at the ceiling of his room. The soft shadows of the afternoon danced across the walls, but his thoughts weren't about light or shadows. They were tangled in strategies, possibilities, and the subtle chessboard of influence he had started setting into motion. Then, a sharp ping echoed in his mind. An intrusion tore through his thoughts. "Loki-sama." He flinched. "Raisin," he groaned, sitting up quickly. "At least warn me before you do a thought communication." A slight pause, then a faint voice replied. "Well, I can't exactly warn you, since I'd still have to use thought communication." Loki blinked and exhaled slowly, leaning back against the pillows. "Actually, he's right." "Fine," Loki muttered. "By the way, why are you contacting me?" "I thought I told you, no contact whatsoever." Raisin's calm voice carried through his mind. "Loki-sama, I just thought you might want to hear this." Loki's eyes narrowed. A small smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. "Go ahead," he said. There was a slight hum of energy in the mental connection before Raisin's words came clearly. "Yes, the King Admaris, has called a meeting regarding the events surrounding yesterday. I wanted to ask if you wish for me to hide certain details, or tell them exactly what happened." Loki sat up fully, letting his legs dangle off the side of the bed. Falmouth, he thought. Quite the powerhouse within the Western nations. This could be interesting. He stretched his arms behind his head, a faint grin spreading across his face. If anything, Loki as a primordial felt disrespected. He didn't command as much fear as other primordials did because he was essentially unknown. This could be a good chance to get his name out there. If Falmouth mentioned his existence to the Western nation, he tapped a finger against his temple. "Raisin," he said slowly, "I would never make someone as elder as you lie. Tell the truth. Every last detail. Exactly as it happened." Raisin's mental voice was steady. "I will do exactly that, Loki-sama." But inwardly, Raisin thought, he's just doing this for his own entertainment. It has nothing to do with me not wanting to lie. Loki's mind drifted back briefly to yesterday. Loki actually went back to Falmouth yesterday because he had felt that the Master Lock Seal was too weak to command any loyalty from Raisin. So he changed his strategy. He used Tempter, the unique skill he had copied from Diablo during their training. It wasn't just a skill. It was perfection. With Tempter, he could manipulate the soul of any being he had access to and bend it to his will. Not absolute control, but close enough to make them follow, to make them act with devotion. Soul Scholar, he mused quietly. Truly the most versatile, unique skill in existence. Not even ultimate skills can compete with its range, though it cannot replicate them yet. If we were talking facts, Loki's Soul Scholar unique skill had to be the most powerful unique skill in the verse. because it essentially allowed him to perfectly copy any skill that was tied to the soul as long as he had access to the soul. Of course, at this point, he couldn't copy ultimate skills, but unique skills were no problem. His thoughts flicked briefly to Guy. Guy's skill, prideful King Lucifer, it was formidable, yes. But mine is adaptable, flexible, and versatile. If I evolve just a bit more. Loki's lips curved into a faint, contemplative smile. Elsewhere, the kitchens of the North Castle were a symphony of chopping knives, sizzling pans, and steaming pots. Misery and Rain moved with practiced precision, the smells of simmering broth and fresh bread filling the air. Misery glanced at Rain, noting the faint beads of sweat forming on her forehead despite the cool air. "You spent the entire day with Loki yesterday," Misery said casually. "Did you manage to assess his strength?" Rain wiped her brow with the back of her hand, exhaling slowly. "Misery," she said, her voice low but filled with awe. "Loki's strength is boundless. Not once did he take a fight seriously. Honestly, if he evolved, he could probably face Guy-sama in a one-on-one." Misery's sigh was heavy. "I suppose this is our new reality," she murmured. "We have to maintain the relationship between him and Guy-sama. If anything, after their battle, it would be ideal if they were friends. Or at least aligned." Rain nodded, still feeling the weight of yesterday's events.